We are Nerd Cult Online, and this is Warhammer 40,000 Rogue Trader from Owlcat Games. For those unfamiliar with what a Rogue Trader is, basically they are a trader in the universe of 40k that essentially flies from pretty much everywhere to bring supplies, collect bodies, collect artifacts, basically raid places that the legal groups can't do legally, and essentially they definitely are designed, and a lot of them look very pirate-esque. And so you play one, it's actually before he becomes one, or she, depending on the character you create, which you're about to see the character creation here in a sec. Now, first off, the character creation and the setup of the game, which takes the first several minutes to do, is very well done, very well thought out. I mean, they take into account a lot of possible, not quite disabilities per se, but essentially, accounting for how different people see things differently, as far as like different, how, if they have issues with certain colors, if they're fully colorblind, things like that. And so they take into account a lot of that, so that way you can actually adjust it, and so you can see a better definition for those people. And then they give you a lot of options to choose from as far as the actual character you're going to play. You can actually put in a name, help customize tattoos, hairstyle, facial hair, things like that. So it gives you a huge plethora of choices. One of the only games I've ever seen with this level of detail for character creation was Dark Tide, which was also a Warhammer 40,000 game. So the folks behind the Warhammer 40,000 video games definitely seem to be consistent in that regard, and allowing people that level of creativity definitely makes for a much richer game universe, because not every playthrough the characters are going to look exactly the same, and so that definitely makes multiple playthroughs also more enjoyable, because different names, different characters. So it definitely is an advantage in my book. Now, several times through the game, you're going to find loading screens like this. Now, if you notice, there is a percentage showing that it's complete. Pay attention to that, because once it's ready to actually start, you actually have to hit the damn button to get it to start. And I literally sat there for 10 minutes waiting for that level to load. It was waiting on me. As you start walking around the ship, you're going to get quite a few tutorials. Now, many of them are tutorials that are almost completely just written down and giving you kind of a wall of text. Now, a lot of that text is very important. So all the text you see here, not so important. That's more lore-related stuff or identifying. Now, also pay attention to later on when there's bodies on the ground. Loot the damn bodies, because I found out that you could loot them after about 2 hours into the game and had no idea that I was missing a ton of gear that I could have picked up. Possibly made my characters even stronger had I done so. So one thing you will notice that there is a lot of lore throughout the game, and a lot of it just takes you walking over, tapping A on your Xbox controller in order to see it and read it. Now, when it comes to the descriptions and how to do certain abilities, honestly, I skipped most of it and didn't bother reading it. Partly because when I first started playing this game, the first hour and a half of it was spent at the end of a really long day and very tired, and reading that much text was putting me to sleep, so I decided to just get on with the action. That was a bad decision. You want, especially when you get started with this game, you want to start out refreshed and take the time to read all of that stuff, because at first it feels like a lot of redundant, kind of useless information, but later you're going to need it, because I died so many times where had I read that information earlier, I would have been able to do certain activities, certain moves that would have made things much easier for myself and pretty much protected me and saved me for longer. And once I started actually learning those controls better, again, without reading about them, I actually ended up having a much better combat experience. And even with the uphill battle I made for myself, the game had an enjoyable difficulty to it. And this is me playing, I think, on the hardest or the next to hardest difficulty. And from there, the amount of lore throughout this, and we're talking like authentic Warhammer 40,000 lore, is fantastic. I mean, they did their research. They dug deep in the Black Library for all this information, and is basically just spoon feeding it to you. So, if you're somebody that wanted to learn more about the 40K universe, play this game and pay attention, because this game is going to teach you a lot about the world around you. Now, just to be aware, this is actually part one of a stretched out 2-part review. This one is for the core game itself, and then when the DLC releases in the near future, we've already been contacted by the developers, and they are going to be giving us a code for us to review, and so we will be reviewing that at that time. So this one focuses on the main game itself, and the other one's going to be focusing strictly on the DLC. So that will be part 2. But with this, playing the game, again, there's just so much lore. It is amazing how much detail they put into this game, and just the area, like on the maps, the attention to detail there is so perfect that, I mean, it looks and feels like you're aboard one of these Battlefleet Gothic ships. And I mean, they nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. Now, overall, I had 2 complaints with the game. First one being that while walking around and basically performing missions, some of the missions became a little bit more difficult because there was no general waypoint to point the way as far as like which room to go into or which direction to be walking. And so there's several times where I ended up going to the completely wrong end of the map. So that's complaint number one. That's my biggest complaint. Honestly, it's not that big of a deal because, being in this universe, you're not going to get a waypoint in real life. So, it makes more sense that you're not going to always have a waypoint in the game either. And so, walking around and kind of exploring, figuring out where you need to go when this is your first time aboard the cruiser is definitely something that they got right at the same time. So while it's a complaint, they still did it right. The second complaint, and again, these are my only two complaints, is that we got to spend so much time developing the look of our character, the attention to detail with tattoos and augments, things like that, hairstyle, wearing a hat or not, that type of thing. And the majority of the game is spent in this isometric view where the characters are so small you can't really even see most of those details. And so, it is a little disappointing that you don't get to really see the character you developed as well. So, most of the characters are going to look very similar to each other when playing, and I would assume that most of the female characters are going to look very similar in that regard too. I have not built a female character yet, so that remains to be seen. So I could be wrong there. Again, I'm just making an assumption based on the way it is with the male character.
Was that you? Or...
Now, in my opinion, both of those complaints for a game are not that big of a deal. So many bigger games have done much worse and still been great games. And so far, with the several hours I've played on this game, with the richness in the lore and the gameplay, the graphics, overall, I'm going to say that thus far, this is a damn good game. And I definitely thank Owlcat for sharing this with us. We really appreciate it. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Like I said, most of my reviews, when I do them, I typically spend an hour tops. Well, really, an hour minimum, hour and a half tops. And this one, I played close to about 5 hours before I decided to write the review. And again, thoroughly enjoyed it every step of the way. So thank you again for sharing that with us. Hope you guys enjoyed. Now, please enjoy the next about 9 minutes of gameplay stretched out over several hours, where my many deaths have been edited out, mostly for time's sake, so that way you're not having to watch the grind of making up for those mistakes.
Let's get to it. The Emperor commands. I can't allow myself to do this. I cannot comply.
Tried and tested tactics are the best ones.
Here we go. Hold on.
It will be done.
Anything else? Was that you? Or
Death to the weak! Ah! Through pain and hardship, we prove our devotion.
I'll do it. Doubt is for the weak. Guided by faith!
I won't suffer this. I can't allow myself to do this. Chaos guides me.
stop it!
Chaos guides me.
I will do my duty. It will be done.
Not this Greyer's job. Farewell.
Let the faith guide my path to glory.
We should deal with this. An expected result.
myself yet again.
The Emperor favors me today.
We shall reclaim what is rightfully ours.
Allow the flame of the dynasty to perish in the dark. No, it will not be like this. The ritual will not be completed. I'll take care of it. And you, see to it that the void ship breaks free from the warp.
Accursed traitor! A time will come when you will bleed for...
What? Theodora is dead. No.
Your ritual won't be finished, heretic!